This is an exclusive, me talking about this, because we haven't even announced this yet.
Jimmy Kimmel literally gave you his house keys?
Mind blown, that was incredible. Like, why would I quit my real job at Apple?
You've been uploading once a month for 10 years.
You need to friggin' appreciate what I went through to get to this point. Oh, that is so un-PC. This is like a female and she's pregnant. I've been calling her fat.
What's up, guys? For this interview, I watched nearly every single video that Mark Rober has put out, picked the 7 most interesting clips to ask him 7 questions to go behind the scenes and inside the minds of a YouTuber who has over 20 million subscribers and has worked at NASA and Apple. Mark, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks. I'm excited to find the 7 coolest parts of my YouTube channel.
Most interesting and I think hopefully most revealing.
Okay.
And I want to show a few clips that I want to understand more of the process behind the scenes. So I won't give too much context for this one, but should look familiar. Class. The elephant toothpaste video, what inspired that? And I thought I'd also ask about how do you tell a story visually? Because I think you're so good at that.
Sometimes, you know, people who enjoy the channel will reach out. A lot of times I don't see when they reach out, but in this case, it made it through to me. There's a kid named Fletcher. He had brain cancer, and he wanted to talk to me before he went into like brain surgery. So I was like, I should throw this kid like the world's most epic birthday. And so like, what you see there is like the conclusion of what would be considered the world's most epic birthday, right? So we had like, you know, 2 world records, like a foam pit, a 25 million Orbeez pit, a freaking skateboard ramp into a pool with like all this, like we just went crazy. Instead of like doing something kind of nice for like 100 kids, we're like, let's do all that for 1 kid. And it was just like, honestly, it's probably the most rewarding experience of my YouTube career. Was like, we did 1 and then we did a sequel. Because we did 1 first, basically it's elephant's toothpaste, and a lot of times it's under these Erlenmeyer flasks, and then they go, they shoot up into the air, right? So we're like, what if we did just like a massive one? But as it is with like a lot of my engineering, it's like, it's a great idea, but there's like so much work that goes into making that a reality. So many tests that have to happen. You know, we scaled up from a desktop version to a 4-foot version to a 10-foot version so that we could do the 20-foot version. And each time we were learning more and more, how do you reinforce this? We did it, the first year we did it, fires off, and there's so much force, it lifts this 2-ton thing like 5 feet into the air and the bottom busts out. So we're like, it still went like, I don't know, like 100 feet in the air, really tall. But then of course, you know, as an engineer, I'm like, I feel like, I could one-up that. Like, I want to know, I didn't get to answer that question, how tall could this be? So we use it as a, you know, there's no such thing as failures, just learning opportunities. And then we went back a 2nd year, which is what you see there. That weighs 10 tons. It's like completely made of steel, could survive a bomb. And this time we were successful with it. Goes in, goes like 250 feet in the air, 25, you know, story building. And we got to answer the question, how tall could you make elephant's toothpaste go? And that is the answer. So yeah, I'm always trying to like up my game there because, you know, there's, you know, the story I tell with how I set something up and establish the concept and frame something. You know, it wasn't just let's do this thing and put it in the air. That's at minute like 18 of this video, right? Everything before that is like other cool things, but it's building up the story of this kid who has brain cancer, and this is the payoff. Like how you set up that moment, and one of the tools you have is like the way you film it and visually what you do. So in that one specifically, I hired my buddy Nurk. He's a drone pilot. So we got some super dope drone shots of like, you know, it goes up, the drone comes, you know, you've seen these drone racing, goes super fast. So we just got a lot of comments were about like how epic that footage was. You know, for a video to go viral, it has to evoke some visceral response from the viewer. Yeah. And, you know, whether they think it's amazing, whether it makes them laugh, whether it makes them, you know, feel anger or outrage, they just have to feel something, and then they'll be more likely to share it. And one of the things you can feel is amazement. And if visually I can film something in a way that just fills you with awe and just like like my brain is so tickled by what I just saw on the screen there, then you're more likely to share it. It makes more of a lasting impression, which is my ultimate goal, because I want, my ultimate MO is to get folks, especially the young folks, excited about science and engineering and education. And the more I can just make you feel something, the more stoked you will be for that to be your future career path, or for you to think it's cool.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you mentioned that was at minute 18, because I think so many people think about the payoff, the end of that journey. How do you make people feel something during the journey? How do you establish the problem, the tension, to ultimately get that payoff to be even more inspiring as a result?
There's something I've heard people call like Jenga storytelling, which is like the start of my videos usually is like, I'll tease that. And I'll show them like, this is what we're building up to. There's an amazing thumbnail that got you to click on it. I want to pay off on that thumbnail in the first 30 seconds. So I'm not clickbaiting you. But a lot of times in my videos, if you've watched a bunch, a lot of times I'll be like, but before we get to that, we first need to go back 8 months, because that's when, the package was first stolen off my porch.
Yeah.
Or that's when the squirrels started eating all my birdseed. I show you, this is where I landed, but you don't even understand, dude. There's a much bigger story behind this. Just go with me. And then I take them back in time and I build up to that. But it's Jenga storytelling in the sense that you know how the game of Jenga is going to end.
Yeah.
It always ends the same, but people still enjoy it and they want to play it.
Right, because they're watching the wobble of the tower.
How exactly did it wobble? It's just enjoyable, even though you know the ending, right? Every quarter second is sacred in my videos. Like if a quarter second isn't doing something for me, I'll cut it out. So, for the squirrel video specifically, I think I had a year's worth of footage, if you add up all the cameras, to condense down to 15 minutes. So it's the reason the pacing is quick is because I know you have 20 other options in the sidebar to click away to, right? TV is a lot more passive, you just watch, you're on your couch. But with YouTube and you're on your devices, tons of options.
Absolutely.
So I have to make it engaging the whole time. So while the ending payoff, that was cool, there was also a freaking 25 million Orbeez pool at minute 15. And at minute 12, we did a devil's toothpaste explosion that blew up out in front of a house, right? And at minute 8, we were riding a private jet to get to the place. So it's not like it's just boring up to that point. I just try and cram it full. Just so when you get to the end, you're like, mind blown, that was incredible. What else does this person have?
Absolutely. I think setting context, setting the problem, and introducing the characters, which sets up my next clip. I'll let you hit the play button on this one.
I knew when you said character is what was coming down the pipe.
Last year, I named one of the squirrels Fat Gus because he loved to eat and was a little on the hefty side. But then halfway through, I noticed he had nipples, which it turns out means he was actually a girl, and a pregnant one at that. So it was just a whole PR disaster, and I switched the name to Fantastic Gus and rephrased a few other things. But to be honest, Fantastic Gus just doesn't roll off the tongue like Fat Gus.
Amazing. Fat Gus. I feel like Fat Gus is more famous than I am at this point.
He's an icon. She's an icon.
She's an icon.
She's an
I'm
icon.
so sorry.
Yeah. If you give context on that clip for the few people who haven't seen it, but also what other tricks like that where even naming a squirrel can allow us to relate more to the characters, to understand the payoff in videos and stories like that in general?
Yeah, I think one thing you're kind of keying on is you're focusing on elements of story, right? Which I think first we just have to back up, because a lot of people think they like my videos because I'm a good builder, and that's actually not true. I'm okay at that. There's a lot of people who are better than me, but I will say I'll admit I'm a pretty good storyteller, right? There's a lot of people who made videos about squirrels in their backyard before me, but none of them named the squirrels like that, right? And just when you can buy into the character and I can personify them, Fat Gus being the really clever but kind of lazy, but squirrel, people just it just resonates with people so much more, and they're so much more likely to share the video, And so in that case with Fat Gus, literally the way I said it in there, where it's I had these squirrels, I'd been filming them for a month. I told one of my friends, or I showed a picture, I was like, look at this fat one, how hilarious is that? And she's like, are those nipples? And I'm like, yeah, and they're I'm pretty sure if it's female, then that means they're female and they're pregnant. I'm like, no. So I Googled it, and what happened there was exactly, and I was like, well, I should bring the viewers on this same journey with me of discovery. Because up to this point in that video, I kept joking about how this is like the fat dude who's super lazy. And then it was like I had this moment that I was like, oh, that is so un-PC. This is like a female and she's pregnant. I've been calling her fat. So then after that, the joke was like, I would say like, oh, you look great. Like you don't look a gram over, over 700 ounces or whatever. So I just love that idea. And obviously it's just a squirrel. Did I ascribe maybe like more personality traits to them than like, a researcher would? Probably. But I mean, heck, you see the footage. Yeah. She's doing all those things. She really does seem crafty. And when all the other ones will just like eat the food, but when she eats, she'll like lay down and just like shovel it in her mouth on her stomach. It's freaking hilarious. But to really lean into that and make it relatable to people just gives the videos so much more like power and oomph. And it just resonates that much more. Going back again to what makes a viral video, you just have to feel something, visceral response. Naming the squirrels and making them characters like creates that visceral response.
And it's fascinating to hear the comparison of you saying, I think about every quarter second, but then also saying, I need to take time to bring them on the journey of discovery.
It's because that is so important.
Yeah.
Most people don't realize this, but like every word I've ever said on my YouTube channel, unless it's like extemporaneous and we're like doing an experiment and I say something, is at my feet written out on a piece of paper. Like I will spend a half an hour getting 5 sentences down to like 4 1/4 sentences. I try and state everything as succinctly and just like as directly as possible. So like to be able to vlog, like I couldn't do that. And I want to keep it a lot more interesting than that. So I just make it really, really dense. But the story is something that you can't skimp on. Like you have to have that setup and then that payoff.
Yeah. And I want to dig deeper just because I feel like these lessons are applicable to writers, teachers who are listening to this. What other tips do you have to tell better stories that make us feel something? Context, problem setting, characters, any other things, Mark, that you've noticed in your career that have really helped your videos get more reach?
Yeah, it's interesting though, because it's like at the end of the day, I am a mechanical engineer, so slow your roll, all right? I'm not like some fancy writer. And I think a lot of this is, I maybe just do it without like intentionally doing it. Certainly the thing I can say I definitely do is like set up the problem. A good example of this maybe is like liquid sand hot tub. I did a hot tub where you put some air in, it's just sand, put some air in and it becomes like a liquid. It's like liquefied, right? But I talked about how it's really hard to do. I saw this done, but there's no plans for it. So I scoured like all these patent drawings. I'm like trying to figure this out. And then I did like 25 prototypes. And then eventually we got to the point where we have this. And then I show it, But so that people know that this, when I show the thing, matters, and that it was difficult, I want to give the context for like everything that got to that point. Same with like the world's largest Jello pool. I did like a 15-ton Jello pool. And that was like so difficult. And it's like I brought everyone on the journey so you can appreciate the kid belly flopping at minute 14. Like you need to friggin' appreciate what I went through to get to this point. And it's really hard to make Jello at large scale because you have to we had to boil everything in these like 55-gallon drums. But then you have to refrigerate it. You can't have a refrigerator that big. So like, how do we solve that? And it's like, this is the conflict, right? What do we do? What if we went to the right location, the right latitude, which my brother has a backyard in Utah, and there's 3 weeks, if you look at the almanac data, where it's cold enough at night, but not quite freezing, and then warm enough in the day to have a party. So let's use his backyard as the refrigerator. And just, that was back-breaking work. We had to do it in layers. And so I bring people on that journey in part because I want freaking credit for all the work I did. But if I can do it in an entertaining way, which I always do, like I make the story something that's engaging, they know what's coming. You almost like want it to be teed up. Right. You know what I mean? You almost want it to have, because then the payoff just matters so much more. So that, to your point then, it's like introducing the conflict and how like it was hard to get here. Let me show you how hard it is. It's like something I almost always do because it is hard. Yeah. And I want people to appreciate that. And failure is okay. A lot of times I'll show my failures. But in the end we got here, and that is the engineering design process.
Yeah. It's like the hero's journey, but condensed.
The hero's journey, yeah.
Yeah, and Fat Gus instead of like Luke Skywalker.
That's right, exactly.
Mark, one of the things that's been so enjoyable about following your career is seeing some mainstream media appreciation of your work and of science. I want you to play this clip, and I have a few questions.
Channel is very popular, and it's where I saw this video of a watermelon trick he pulled on a bunch of kids.
Oh my gosh.
All right, there he is. Watch this. He pulls the watermelon out, and it's perfectly shaped.
You want to know how I did it?
It's very clever, right? So I asked Mark if he could use his considerable brain power to come up with some simple April Fool's prank ideas, and he said yes, he would. So please welcome Mark Rober, everybody. Here he is.
That was cool.
How did you end up on the Jimmy Kimmel show, and what was that experience like?
Yeah, it's weird. It's bonkers. Because like at that point, I had like 250,000 subscribers, which isn't that much. Jimmy saw that video, and normally it's the producers who find someone, and then they will, show it to the host, Jimmy Kimmel, and then he'll be like, yeah, that's fine, they can come on. But Jimmy specifically said, hey, let's get this guy on the show.
Oh my God, Jimmy Kimmel DM'd or reached out directly?
No, he reached out to his producers and said, hey, make sure you get this guy on the show. But I mean, the punchline is like, so I went on his show then, and now it's like, I have a key to his house. Like I hang out, like when I'm in LA, I stay at Jimmy Kimmel's house. Like he's become a friend. I feel like he picked me out of obscurity, and like he had faith in me. It was like, dude, you have something. He sent me an email. It's like, you're a star. Like you may not realize it, but you're a star. And that was, even still, I don't feel like that's true, but like he saw that in me first, and now I'm doing a TV show with him for Discovery Channel called Revenge of the Nerd. I'm the nerd, and basically it's like the glitter bomb. We prank people who violate social norms. So if you don't pick up your dog's poop, we make a catapult, we launch it back at your house. If you don't like park your shopping cart, we'll make a robotic shopping cart to like chase you all around the parking lot, right? So we're collaborating and working on like projects, and I'll call him. Like I just talked to him 2 days ago. I had something I wanted to bounce off of him. So I don't even know how that happened. Like that was bonkers. He has a bowl game named after him, and he asked me. I'm making him a actual T-shirt cannon, like a cannon that shoots T-shirts, and we're gonna do it at the halftime game of this bowl game. So it was surreal going on his TV show. It was like crazy, right? Because it's like a different world. But now it's like I've gone back on his TV show and I'm on the couch now. It's such a journey and one I still don't understand. It's crazy that like we're friends and I still don't get it, but it's been really, really cool. And it's also interesting because it's like it juxtaposes like these two mediums, and it's like...
Real quick, less than 10 seconds here. If you're enjoying this video, it would mean the world if you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell if you haven't already. Or if you have, just hit that like button. Every little thing helps with the YouTube algorithm, with all the work and research that I pour into these videos. Plus, I bet you won't want to miss what we've got coming at you next week. All right, back to the video.
Mr.Beast and I are going on his show on November 1st to talk about TeamSeas, which is like an initiative we're doing. Where $1 removes like a pound of plastic from the ocean. We're trying to raise $30 million. But we are going, compared to like an actual movie star, like we're just not as charismatic, right? YouTubers. And Jimmy and I, no, but I appreciate you saying that. We have a different thing that we bring to YouTube. I think there's an authenticity that matters more. But even though we're authentic, it's like, it's just interesting to juxtapose those worlds. Like me going into that world, you don't see a lot of YouTubers on that couch because it's just kind of like two different worlds, right? But it's interesting to like straddle them both. And I think what I do kind of does work more in both worlds, where that doesn't always translate. But yeah, that's been just a freaking lovely experience all around.
And even to put that in context, Jimmy Kimmel had Logan Paul on his show, and then only a few weeks ago, like said all those things, like negative things about Logan. Like his praise for you as a YouTuber, like I feel like even means that much more to have you on the show. And that's not a figure of speech, is it? Jimmy Kimmel literally gave you his house keys?
Yeah, like I have a key to his house, yeah. Like I say.
Do you ever swing by unannounced? What's up, Kimmels?
No, I don't. I don't abuse it. And I'm like, his kids love me and stuff, and I love his kids and stuff. So, I mean, it's like a code. I have a key to his his house, yeah. I don't know if I'm not supposed to say that. Sorry, Jimmy. I think it's cool. I won't tell him the code.
What other advice has Jimmy given, like being from traditional media, you being from quote unquote new media, that has stuck with you over the years?
Well, he told me like the fact that we're doing this TV show took like a lot of convincing, because you know, I think it's no secret at this point. That's like, as a YouTuber, I will reach a lot more eyeballs.
Right.
I will get paid a lot more, and I will have full creative control. So when like TV comes along, it's like, hey, fewer people will see this. We won't give you full creative control, and we'll pay you less. So it's like, where do I sign, right? But his point is like, and it's true, if you go into a random restaurant, like anyone over 40 has no idea who PewDiePie is. And PewDiePie is the biggest YouTuber in the world, like by subscribers, right? And it's also like my grandma, like she doesn't care that it's like, oh, I have a YouTube video that gets like 100 million views. But if like I was on like the local Wichita news, like commenting about my chili, she'd be like, oh, my grandson was on TV, you know? Like there's just, eventually it won't matter, but as it stands right now, there's just some portion of the population that, you know, if you want to work with more brands, if you want to like get your message out more, you have to have that TV element. And Jimmy's right about that. And so that's why I'm doing this like TV show with Discovery Channel and like kind of dipping my toes in the water there just to kind of like see.
Yeah.
But it took a lot of convincing on his part so I could like kind of see his perspective. And even my other YouTube friends are like, why are you doing something on TV? Like, what are you doing, you know? I'm like, I got to try it out, so.
And Mark, to put that in perspective, Jimmy sent you that email that said, hey, I think you're a star, which coming from him means so much. You have 10 million subscribers and you're still working a full-time job. Am I remembering the context of all that right?
Yeah, that's about when he said, I mean, he said I was a star when I had like 3 million subscribers or something. It's, you know, I have 20 million subscribers now. It's true, I didn't quit my job till I had 10 million subscribers. But that's like, that's evidence of like, it's not like I don't have like low belief in myself, but it's like I don't know. I still feel, it's not even imposter syndrome because like I enjoy what I do and I feel like I am pretty good at it, but like, I don't know. It's still hard to wrap my head around that. Like, you know, if I go out now, it's very rare that someone won't recognize me, you know, but I still feel like, I don't know, like I'm just a dude, which is why it's like, why would I quit my real job at Apple doing mechanical engineering if I'm just a dude who happens to be putting up these videos? Like, I don't consider myself a star, you know? But at some point you're like, all right, this is going pretty well. This seems to be resonating with people. I should like really lean into this, you know? I don't know.
Do you remember the day that you left? Your
Apple?
full-time job? Yeah, at Apple.
What would the day have been? It was about 2 years ago or 2 years ago. I don't know the exact day.
Yeah.
I'd gone a little bit. I had gone to like 70%, so I wasn't working full time. But the videos at that point were just so big and such productions that I'm like, my concern is that I'd be like, without like a structure of a job and stuff, also that I'd just be like, sitting at home like surfing TMZ in my underwear all day, like without like structure and stuff. And I just wouldn't be interacting with people, but my team is like a little bit bigger now. Yeah. All my builds, I'm usually collaborating with someone, so that hasn't been the case at all. It's been super fulfilling to be able to just really focus and make these full time.
That tees up my next clip, which is you talking about your team.
Oh, look at this. I still edit all my own videos, which people think is crazy, but it's like, I like that.
I think that's the fun part.
I have a really small team. Like I just hired my first full-time person.
You buck so many trends. I feel like when YouTubers go one way, build teams, launch merch lines, launch a bunch of secondary and tertiary channels, you're like, nope, I'm gonna focus on mine. I'm gonna upload once a month for 10 years. You've been uploading once a month for 10 years. Can you talk about the treadmill of being a creator and why you haven't tried to bust it up to 10 miles per hour?
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what it is. It's like a treadmill, and I think that's what people do. If you consider it a treadmill, like you could go to it at a sprinting pace and do the book and do the podcast and launch the merch line and go on tour and hire 20 people, and that's super exciting. And you can do that for a little bit. In the same way that you can sprint for a little bit. But what inevitably happens is like the dopamine hit of that wears off and you're still sprinting on this treadmill. And to me, that's what burnout is, where it's like you're not getting the reward to your brain, but you're still putting in the effort. I've been very protective of my treadmill speed and I've just kept it at a jogging pace. And I've said no to so much, you know, including the podcast. I just got merch less than a year ago. At like, I don't even know, 15, 16 million subscribers is when I first started doing merch. And it's because I have a company who can do it and they're really good. But I just freaking laser focus on my monthly videos and I swing for the fences every month. And I just put all my effort into that. And I don't know, I think there's something that comes from just laser focusing on a thing. And so you don't spread yourself thin. It's like the whole is greater than the sum of the parts in the sense that like, it has a multiplicative effect. So I think you're better off, if I split an idea into 4 videos that each got 1 million views, or if I just put that in one video, I can make that one video get 20 million views. So it's like, I just have these concentrated just nuggets of coolness that I try and put out every month. I can spend the time to make those as good as I feel like I want them to be by just not doing anything else. That could be a distraction from that. So when I tend to do something, I kind of pick my shots. So I did a class with Monthly, which is like an engineering class. And that took 4, 5, 6 months to create and to do all that. But that turned out really well for me. I am working on a secret project now that I'll launch in like a year-ish. That's all I'm gonna say. So don't try and Oprah this out of me, all right? Because you're not getting it from me. But that's another, like, I'm gonna pick this shot. I feel like it's gonna do well. I feel like it's gonna be important and meaningful. But I'm not doing the podcast. I'm not doing the book. I'm not speaking. Even I very, very rarely do this, so.
I appreciate it, man. What's the biggest opportunity you said no to? And how did you deal with the FOMO?
I don't really have FOMO in that sense. I don't really focus and look at it as FOMO. The biggest opportunity I didn't do, I don't know, there's just like a lot of brand deals, a lot of speaking stuff, even the TV stuff. I could have done a lot more on TV, but I don't look at it as FOMO because I feel like, look, this is my path. This is the way I've decided to do it. And so, granted there's an opportunity cost, but as long as I feel confident that the one I did choose is a better choice than the other thing, it's like, well, I could only pick one or the other, so I don't really have FOMO because I picked the better of the two, you know what I mean?
It's such a refreshing mindset. Wow. I wanted to move over to the next clip because you mentioned TeamSeas, you mentioned TeamTrees, and I want to play this clip. And
I don't even know what this is.
TeamTrees was, I enjoyed it, but that was a ton, man. Me and Mark Rober worked on that for like 8 months leading up to it. I don't want to over-exaggerate it. Maybe it was 7 or 6, and I was like, it started with me wanting to plant 1 million trees. And I was reaching out to all these YouTubers that, do environmental stuff. And the gist was just like, you're crazy. You're like, this just isn't possible. You just can't plant 1 million trees.
Do you remember the first time
I do.
You met MrBeast?
Oh.
And then the first time you had a conversation
Yeah,
about
I remember
TeamTrees?
both of them. Both were at Apple. Sorry, Tim Cook. It was on your time. The first time I talked to him, I made a video how you could power a supercar with Volkswagen. It was like a sponsored video with lemons. So we made the world's largest lemon charger, and we powered part of a supercharger with it. And Jimmy saw that, MrBeast, because he was trying to do the same video of powering a bunch of lemons, but he's not an engineer, so his didn't work. So he hit me up on Twitter and said, lol, maybe we should collab or we should talk. So I called him. I was sitting in an Apple conference room. We kind of talked shop. And that kind of started our friendship. And then maybe it was a year or 2 later, someone on Twitter, he said, what should I do for 20 million subscribers? Because he used to do for 5 million, I'll give you 5 million pennies. For 6 million, I'll give someone 6 million cookies, whatever. What should I do for 20 million? Someone's like, you should plant 20 million trees. Then the next comment was like, you should do it with Mark Rober and he'll build a robot and you guys can then plant 20 million trees. So we called and laughed about that and then we're like, but could we do this? What? And that, I remember exactly where I was. I walked outside my building at Apple and I was on the street and we were talking. And I was like, dude, I think what we should do is we should partner with someone, someone who already does this. And let's just raise money and get it where $1 is a tree. That was our hope from the beginning. We talked to the Arbor Day Foundation. They're the gold standard for this. And they said they could do it for that rate. And we're like, let's just freaking do this, man. Because at first we were gonna you could buy seeds and then kids could get 10 seeds and they could plant them. But this is gonna be a disaster because they're gonna plant invasive species trees on land they don't own. It's gonna be a terrible thing. We're like, no, we need some pros to do this. So that was just is, like you said, it was a lot of hard work to set it up. Matt Fitzgerald was also like, us three kind of worked. He's not a YouTuber. He's like, this is what he does, doing projects like this, like Goodwill type stuff. So yeah, we did it. We launched it. The goal was 20 million trees by 2020. It was like 2 months. We got like billionaires got into like a pissing match where they were like, you know, the guy, CEO of Shopify did $1 million, and Elon Musk, I think, did like $1,001,000, and then like someone else come in, like it was amazing. They were like one up each other. And we got 23 million trees. We raised $23 million, which is like bonkers in like 2 months. And that was not just because Mr.Beast and I, it's because we got all of our friends together. And you know, it's amazing when everyone comes together, like what can be done. Which leads into perfectly what I'm wearing here, which is TeamSeas. So this is the sequel to TeamTrees. So we've been working again for 8 months with some really reputable organizations in this. So the Ocean Conservancy and the Ocean Cleanup. And $1 keeps a pound of trash out of the ocean. So $1 means 1 less pound of trash in the ocean, mostly plastic. So that's cleaning up beaches, cleaning up rivers, and then actually going into the ocean and cleaning up some of that stuff. So it's sort of a sacred responsibility, because like with TeamTrees, the median donation was something like $4, which means that's a lot of freaking tooth fairy money, right? These are kids who are, you know, saying, hey, I think this is important and I want to do this. And so we wanted to come back with like an equally reputable organization, kind of a fist bump to Mother Earth. This is cool because like some of the challenges we face won't be solved in our lifetime. But like this is one that we can solve. Like the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is big, but like in 10 years with the right funding, like we can remove that out of the ocean. And this is something that like I think everyone can agree on. We shouldn't have plastic in the ocean. So many things we can't agree on, but I think we can all agree we shouldn't have plastic in the ocean. So, you know, this is our attempt, and like, hey, let's shine a light on this, and let's help get the plastic out of the ocean. You know, we have these river intercepts that stop the plastic from going to the ocean. And then we also have all these beach cleanups. Let's get the plastic that's in trash on the beaches, you know, out. I'm pretty stoked about it. I'm optimistic. I think it's going to be another cool thing. And, you know, granted, of course, this in and of itself doesn't just like, you know, planning, you know, TeamTrees didn't solve climate change. But the point is more like anyone who donates $1 to TeamSeas or to TeamTrees, that's now part of their persona. And they're on TeamSeas. So if they see someone littering at the beach or just littering, they're like, yo, 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 like, that's not what I stand for. Like, I'm on TeamTrees, you know? So it's kind of like helping the future generation realize that we've got one Earth. We really got to take care of it. Like, we're not going to be able to last too long here if we don't start thinking more sustainably. So to be able to move the needle in that direction even a little bit feels like a cool opportunity and a responsibility.
It's so fascinating to hear about these closed-door conversations between you and Jimmy, and how inspiring it is that you're using that time to be like, hey, what can we solve that's messed up in the world right now? What are some other things that you and MrBeast talk about that, you know, excites you, inspires you, that maybe has changed your mind in some way?
Yeah, well, we did TeamTrees and then TeamSeas. So Team Bees, maybe? I feel like bees are an issue. We have to keep with the rhyming. Yeah. So that's how we know what cause to move on to next, whatever rhymes. I think these are like the two biggest. I mean, TeamTrees itself was kind of a big experiment.
Yeah.
It turned out well. So because it turned out well, we're kind of like, all right, well, what's next? Like, we should keep doing this because it went well. So TeamTrees was $20 million or 20 million trees. This is 30 million. So we're going to $10 more million we're trying to raise. We'll see. But I would say, again, in the same way that I try and focus the videos, and Jimmy's the same way, let's pick the banger ideas and just really focus on them. I'd say it's the same way. We don't have a list of like 50 causes.
Right.
And like, I don't even want to brainstorm a bunch more stuff until we can really focus and kick butt on this one.
It's interesting to hear you say going from 20 million for TeamTrees, 30 million as a goal for TeamSeas, but then you're talking about not wanting to raise the treadmill up in terms of going harder. How do you manage like your process so that even when you're doing these big philanthropic initiatives, you're not burning out?
The treadmill specifically is for my own output. And all of my videos, I'm always trying to level up and do a bigger thing. But I also like, it's because I've got more capabilities and I'm better at it now too. And I have, you know, maybe someone else to help with this or that. The reason why we want to go from 20 to 30, it's like, of course, we always want to push ourselves more, but we have more creator friends. Everyone saw how successful TeamTrees was. So we feel like with the same amount of work on our end, that doesn't mean we're working $10 million more. That just means we have the confidence to execute $10 million more effectively this time, right?
Well said.
So I do want to say, by saying I set my treadmill to jog, that doesn't mean I'm just like phoning it in. That just means I'm like careful about how I remain efficient.
Speaking about your process, this was another fascinating thing from a TED Talk.
To make the case that perhaps they aren't that different than us, I'd like to tell you about a plumber I first met when I was 8 years old. He was Italian.
What is the Super Mario effect?
So the Super Mario effect is like a phrase I coined. I kind of stumbled upon it because I asked like my followers to take a test because I said I wanted to see if they could learn how to code. So it was like this code block program where it's like move right 2 squares. If you hit a wall, move left. And basically you're like drag these, then you hit run, you see if your car can run through this maze. So we did it, 50,000 people did the test, but I didn't really care if they could learn how to code or not. I secretly administered 2 different versions of the test. And in one of them, if you failed, it just said, hey, you didn't do it, -5 points, go ahead and try again. On the other version, it said, hey, you failed, go ahead and try again. In other words, the only difference was that in one, we took off 5 points. And by the way, these are completely meaningless fake internet points. No one would ever see these. Like, there's literally no value to them except it was -5 points. And the other we didn't. And that only change led to like a difference of 16% of whether or not you would complete the maze and therefore learn more. And I'm just like, that's bonkers. Like, if this is a true thing, if framing the process of failure in this different light, like if it had that much of an effect, causing you to stick with it more and therefore learn more and then eventually pass, like where else might we see this in our life? And that's when I realized like, oh, you know where you see this is in like gaming and playing video games, you know, growing up playing Super Mario Brothers. No one ever picks up a controller, Super Mario Brothers, falls into the first pit and is like, oh, I failed. I fell into the pit. I'm a loser. I don't ever want to do this. I'm just not good at video games, right? Instead, it's like, no, okay, there's a pit there. Okay, next time I gotta remember, gotta come out with more speed. I gotta jump a little. You're excited to try again. Like the failure has inspired you and motivated you to try harder and to learn more because you're not framing it as failure. It's like a game. And so that's literally how I view like my channel, the projects I do. Like this is part of being an engineer. Failure is the process. Like if you're not failing, you're not reaching far enough, right? Think of all the rockets SpaceX blew up before they even had their first successful one, right? It's because they were pushing themselves so hard and so just challenging themselves. And so it's the same with these, I had some videos that like it took me 3 years for my automatic bullseye dartboard, throw a dart, bullseye, dartboard moves, you get a bullseye. It took me 5 years for my domino robot to set up a whole thing. And at no point was I like, oh, I'm just not good enough, I can't do this thing. It's like, well, no, I just failed, and now I know one more way not to make an automatic bullseye dartboard, right? So it's like, it's a proverbial sliding green shell. When you get hit by the shell, what do? But in life, unfortunately, a bad breakup, you get a bad grade on a test, you don't get the promotion you wanted. And we immediately tell ourselves, oh, we're not good enough. We're losers. I don't want to do that thing. We internalize it. But it's like, you don't do that for a video game, so don't do that for your own life. And I think that's genuinely how I look at my failures, is just like, they're just learning opportunities, get back on the feet. I know a lot of this is outside of my control. It's always a dice roll. I try to stack the dice in my favor, but at the end of the day, it's a dice roll. So it doesn't mean I always, hit them out of the park. But when I don't, what can I learn from it? Boom. Okay, let's do it again. Let's pivot. Let's move on. Let's figure it out.
It's so refreshing to hear that. That tees up our last clip here.
Oh, this is old school.
So as you guys know, I like to post videos of things that I think are cool that you can't find anywhere else on YouTube. So today I'm going to tell you how to flip a coin and get tails every time.
This is beautiful. I don't know why you showed me this, but let me just roll with this because I think I know why, which is like, what an awkward human being that is, right? This is what I love about YouTube is you get to see this growth.
Yeah.
You get to see the Super Mario effect in action. You get to go back and see the first video. There's a few before that are even more awkward where it's like, you know, I haven't found my voice. I haven't learned how to like talk to the camera. And I freaking love it that you can see that happening, you know, as opposed to someone who just comes on the scene fully polished.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's been my MO. I made one video a month for almost a decade now. By the time you release this, it will be a decade. And it's a beautiful thing for you to see me grow as a person. And never once, you know, I look at that and I probably should have said, oh man, I'm not cut out for this. But I didn't. I was like, all right. And I would watch myself back. And then the next month I would try a little something different. And now it's to the point, you know, where I'm on the Jimmy Kimmel show and I'm doing these videos that are like massive productions. And I feel comfortable with it. And I would be blown away if that me could see me today doing this interview. I'd be like, you're crazy, but that's just incrementally keeping that treadmill on jog. I've just stuck with it. And, you know, when stuff like that happens, it's all a learning process and you just get better and better. And I just think there's no better example of like growth mindset. The Super Mario effect is very intertwined with like growth mindset, right? And no better example than YouTubers and going back to their catalog at the beginning. I love it so much.
I love, yeah, going back, toggling to their oldest video and seeing that. I was just gonna ask to close, what advice would you give to people who are in your shoes from 10 years ago? And is it true that Mark, after all of this, being on the Jimmy Kimmel show, doing TeamTrees, about to do TeamSeas, having so many millions of subscribers on views, you still want to go back to high school and become a teacher?
Yeah, that's my dream job still. Yeah, I mean, I'm really passionate about getting folks, especially the young folks, stoked about like science, education, engineering. When I was a kid, there was like, you know, Mr. Wizard's World, Bill Nye, but there weren't any cool engineers. So hearing kids that like watch my channel and then they get inspired and they're out in their backyard making something, they're making their own squirrel obstacle courses or, you know, modding their own Nerf guns. That makes me so stoked to hear. So it's true. I want, like, teaching is my passion. Getting people stoked about this is my passion. Having the YouTube channel as just a medium for that, like a means to that end, has been, I just feel really fortunate to be in this position. And it's something I take seriously. And I want to just keep killing it. But eventually, when people are tired of watching my videos, I absolutely will go be a high school physics teacher, because that's kind of like the core of who I am. So
those are some lucky students. I think in the meantime, we're so lucky to learn from you. And thanks for everything, Mark. I know you don't usually do this, so I appreciate you taking the time, buddy. Cool.
Fun.
Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, and we'll see you guys next week.